Acting President, I am pleased to rise today to speak to the Outdoor Recreation Victoria Bill 2026, and in doing so state that this bill has been a little while in the train. It was first read in the lower house on April 1st, second read on April 2nd, and then sat for some weeks and even indeed months until June, when it has passed through the lower house, and we find it here today. Now, just to put on record, the Liberals and Nationals do not oppose this bill, but we do seek to amend and strengthen and ensure that stakeholders who feel aggrieved at the lack of consultation, their concerns are addressed and that this bill is strengthened. Now, let me say from the outset that we are of the firm belief that if more people go outside, get in the car, get on the bus, get on the horse, get on the four-wheel drive, get on the push bike, get on their motorbike and go out into the regions, out into our outdoor spaces, our public spaces, and they do those traditional pastimes, such as recreational fishing, such as hunting that has been around for as long as Homo sapiens have been around, and do those activities, then I'm of the firm belief, and the Liberals and Nationals are of the firm belief, that there will be less machetes on our streets, less people lining up with severe mental difficulties and seeking mental health services, and we believe that more families and communities will be strengthened and stay together. Now, just by way of a little bit of background into this, there was a gentleman, and he worked very hard, and he was told that he had 6 months to live. He was a light smoker, he'd had 2 strokes, and he was told by his doctor, you have 6 months to live. So at 60 years old, he retired on the spot, he packed up, and with 6 months to live, he went to live in a little fishing village, or a little village in Gippsland, and then every day thereafter, or almost every day, he surf fished. He made his own rods using bamboo. He made his own sinkers, lead weight sinkers, in his garage, and he fished. And that man, who also, when he was young, used to fly fish. He used to fly fish up on the Mitta, on the Mitchell River, take his young family and his German Shepherds and go up on those rivers and fly fished. He has had a love of fishing all his life, and that man who was given 6 months at 60 lasted 19 years. And I believe that's what the likes of recreational fishing, recreational hunting and other pastimes that gets people out in nature, that gets people experiencing all the amazing sensations, understanding of what the outdoors really means, actually supports longevity. And we saw that man, who was my grandfather, last until he was 79 years old and got to know his granddaughter. That's what our recreational pursuits can do for people. Also, Acting President, last month I upheld both a commitment to myself and to the Mountain Cattlemen, and the President of the Mountain Cattlemen is a woman, and she's a dynamic woman. I went up Mount Sterling. I made a commitment, and I went out Mount Sterling with the Mountain Cattlemen. We parked down near Mansfield, and then we drove up a little way, and then rode our horses up to what is now famously known as Craig's Hut at the top of Mount Sterling. And when we were travelling up, halfway up, with the horses in the back and ready to go, we passed hunters. We passed hunters with deer on board, their vehicles. They were incredibly polite to us as we passed. They had all the equipment, they had the walkie-talkies, and there's probably a far more technical name than that. They were communicating with each other, but they were also behaving in an incredibly respectful and safe manner. These were hunters. When we got a bit further up and got the horses out, we then worked our way through the most magnificent scenery up to the top of Mount Sterling. We passed hikers. And we passed, when we got up there, there's a car park, so you can drive your Tesla up near the top of Mount Sterling and near to Craig's hut, that was the very famous place of the man from Snowy River. And the people who know the bush, who live in the bush, who understand, and the mountain cattlemen, for example, know that you would never put Craig's hut where it is, because it doesn't serve, it's actually a really windy place. But what we know is there were campers out hiking, school groups out hiking, and there were hunters all on this Mount Sterling, as well as horse riding, enjoying the great outdoors. And that's what the Liberals and Nationals want to encourage more of, and this is why this sector is a really, really important one. Not only that, it is vastly important, significantly important for the regional economies that it stimulates and that creates vibrancy, and that those regions thrive. Now, I could speak to that at great detail, but just know the local service station, the local pub, the local IGA, the local camping shop and outdoor shop, all of these places and the fish and chip shop along the way thrive both during duck hunting season, that I'm very passionate about and have gone on record in relation to that, but in hunting season more in the winter, but also certainly in recreational fishing. And my electorate, and I know that acting chair is from the same electorate in Eastern Victoria region, has an amazing array of recreational fishing opportunities. The Liberals and Nationals want to see these opportunities grow and develop. Now, this bill, and speaking specifically to the bill, this bill amalgamates or merges the Game Management Authority and the Victorian Fisheries Authority. It consolidates them into one entity, and it also establishes a thing called a Land Access Panel and makes a whole lot of consequential amendments. So this consolidates the regulation, it consolidates promotion, compliance and access to functions within one centralised body. Where has this idea come from the government? Well, it's come from the Silver Review that said, and I quote, "To create a uniform regulator for wildlife management, improving coordination and reducing administrative duplication over time, a single entity would enhance data sharing, streamline enforcement and provide a more consistent regulatory experience for recreational commercial users while supporting a holistic approach to ecosystems and species management." Well, that's a big mouthful. That's an aspirational piece. Various elements within that seem not only reasonable, but, as I said, aspirational. But there is a little bit of devil in the detail that I do want to go into. In relation to the bill itself, as I said, it repeals then the GMA and the VFA. It defines outdoor recreation as some specific entities, and I want to move some amendments later on to expand that. It also creates a corporate body with full powers. It provides ministerial directions, and I also am foreshadowing that I want to look at some amendments from that, just to provide some better governance as we have seen it. I also would like to look at, as I said, the board governance, conflict of interests. It also talks about reporting standards in this bill and creates this land access panel. Now, some of the areas of concern that we hold relate to the outdoor recreational interests, and I might just put on record this sector There are people out there in the world who are in Victoria who have been very frustrated. First of all, when the Minister for Environment was Lily D'Ambrosio, and there are people that feel very aggrieved at her quite leftist stance. And I have had over my time in this place many hundreds of emails in relation to that, the closure of the Wombat State Forest now into a national park and the exclusion of prospectors and miners, that both my personal experience and anecdotally and through reading and understanding the work that they did to actually leave the places that they have fossicked and prospect over decades, indeed 100 or more years in Australia, that they are very frustrated that they've been locked out, and they felt that they have been overlooked in this piece of legislation, and I want to make some remedies to that. But as I said, they have been a very important group that want to leave this place, their outdoors, in a better place than they've found it, and they've certainly over time removed a lot of debris and rubbish, and on occasion some nice little nuggets of gold, which they are under licence quite entitled to do. One of the key things, and I have made significant inroads into consultation, one of the big factors that have come out of this, and I put on record up until mid-April, it was Minister Dimopoulos, and now we have Minister Erdogan. So Minister Erdogan has inherited this, as it were, and I'm sure he will speak to how delighted he is that he has inherited it. But there has been significant issue with the lack of consultation with the commercial fishing industry, a very significant industry in our very wonderful state. They feel quite aggrieved that they have not been consulted, and even indeed in the name of this bill we see it's outdoor recreation, it's merging of fisheries and GMA, but there's no reference in the title. Where do they sit in all of this? And they feel quite aggrieved at that. But they've been constructive, they've spoken at length with me, and I thank them for that, and I'm happy to go in detail. They have been constructive in their conversation, and I know that they've reached out to the Minister in relation to the concerns that they have in the bill. But so that's one avenue. I've also heard back from a variety of people, indeed recreational fishers have said overwhelmingly that they're quite pleased. There's a few who are concerned and have some specific issues, but they're quite pleased with the change. Commercial, not so, feel aggrieved. There's some environmentalists too, of course, and indeed we've all been, I would say, deluged with a flood of anti-everythings, basically, anti-hunting, anti-fishing, anti-eating fish, and specifically anti-duck hunting. And when I looked, there was a bit of a flood coming into my inbox, I'm assuming others, and when I looked at it, it was generated from members of the Animal Justice Party. Well, there's no surprises there that, certainly people, if they're going to make a protest, make a comment, and I read the first one and then I read the second one and then I realised that the rest of them were all the same. They should at least take the opportunity to be creative and think of their own comments. Anyway, that having said, I want to go into the importance of our seafood industry, and I really want to thank Seafood Industry Victoria and Matt Wozniak, also from my electorate, but not because it was in my electorate, the Wolfgang from the San Remo Fishing Co-op, a really important group of people down there creating the most amazing product, fresh from our Gippsland shores onto and into San Remo, and then dealt with and then transferred to your pub, a fantastic opportunity to eat local fish. Now let me just give you some detail around this because I think it's important. The studies show that most Victorians consume regularly about 90% believing that seafood should be produced locally. So overwhelmingly we want to eat local fish. This provides an opportunity here, but what we sadly see is that unfortunately, the volume of seafood caught has dropped. Wild seafood has dropped from 40% in 2015-2016 down to, I think it's only in the 5%, and overwhelmingly it comes in from overseas. So you've got an industry that has few miles by comparison. It's caught offshore, it's caught out in Bass Strait, and whether that be the Corner Inlet or the Lakes entrance or further round in the west, fresh fish carved up on ice in the local shops, the most beautiful, sweet, locally grown, healthy product, and Victorians should be eating more of it, and we should be supporting that industry to the nth degree. Victorian seafood industry has the potential to play a greater role in strengthening regional communities, providing local healthy certainly alternatives to overseas, sustainable protein, and this is some of the community that are there, creating local jobs, and we support them in their entirety. So some of the other comments that I think are really important in this relate to duck hunting, and we know that there has been a significant campaign against duck hunting. Now in 2022 and the beginning of 2023, there was an inquiry into duck hunting, a select committee inquiry into duck hunting. And indeed, Mr Borman was on it, Mrs MacArthur, Mr Mulholland, myself, and then we had a Green and we had 3 Labor, from my recollection. And we heard very wide-ranging advice. We heard the hunting organisations, Sporting Shooters Association, Field and Game, even ADA put in, Australian Deer Association put in their view on hunting and the importance of it. We also heard, very importantly, I mean, we heard from a broad range of people, but we heard very importantly from one professor. His name was Brian Hiller. He's the Professor of Wildlife Ecology in a state university in Minnesota. He's a professor. He understands ecology. His words were, habitat is key. If you have habitat, you have birds. It's about water in the landscape, healthy landscapes, and of course at this time it was the interim harvest model. Now the government has the harvest model, and this is a really important model that hunters and particularly some ecologists agree, and it was designed by ecologists. And during one of the hearings we heard a particular Professor Marcel Classen, and I asked him this question. The then interim harvest model, you have both worked on and formatted. How robust is the science, and are you convinced of the sustainability of this model? And he said, yes, regarding robustness, I think it is robust. We've done a good job here. He then goes on in quite detail to explain that, in short, hunting does not make a dent in populations. It is all about water in the landscape and making sure that the assessment that goes through to the minister from this adaptive harvest model provides the context by which the minister can then endorse and open up a harvest season. Now, speaking to duck hunting, in my electorate in Eastern Victoria region, we have a thing called Hart Morass. 20 years ago, it was a wasteland pan. It had been overgrazed. It was unhealthy, a salt pan. Now move forward with hundreds of thousands of hours of volunteers, hunter conservationists. I repeat, hunter conservation. It is now recognised around the world, and scientists come and assess the biodiversity from the bugs to the birds to aquatic life. It is a very special place, and lo and behold, annually it provides the opportunities for duck hunters to enjoy a recreational pastime that has been there for many, many years. In relation to some of the parts of the bill that I would like to improve and the Liberals of Nationals would like to improve is a targeted package. We want to, and there's been some in the industry have said that they don't want this to occur. Many do. Many of the recreational fishers and we'll say the GMA, the hunters, are quite happy with this going to be merged and the opportunities that it provides. We would like to see, we have heard, listened and spoke with those commercial fishers, and they feel that outdoor recreation does not provide the context by which a very important industry operates, and they would like to see a name change that includes something in the vicinity with fishing in it. I've spoken to other hunters, and they would really like to see the word hunting, and we know in New Zealand there is an example where that exists. Fishing, hunting, but also outdoor, and making sure that you can walk and chew gum at the same time, that these elements can be incorporated and provide that confidence, that certainty that no one is getting left behind, per se, in this merger. Some of the other parts that I would like to do is to provide some more protection and acknowledgement of that commercial fishing sector, licences, quotas, management entitlements that exist under the Fisheries Act. I also particularly want to, in the bill, recognise, and the bill goes to, it starts in the definitions, it talks about outdoor recreational activities, but it puts some in but leaves some out. And when you start to do that, people start to get concerned that they will be left out, and the government will probably say to me, this is part of the first tranche. I understand that, but why not put them in at the same time? If you've got a vision, you've got an aspiration, why not put the likes of trail bike riding, prospecting, fossicking, horse riders and the like? So I'm seeking to make some amendments that improve that, to say if this is going to be a new vision, we keep the mature industries and pastimes and make sure that no one is left behind. I also want to look at ensuring that with the land access panel, the land access panel covers land and water where it's on land. And so that would be rivers and streams and lakes and the like, dams. But what about that coastal area, that marine aquatic area, and how is that being addressed? Now, an access panel, if it works well, and here's part of my concern, if it works well, can be a huge asset to the Minister of the day, providing localised and important information to delve into, and the Minister can speak the terms of reference, but also really dig deep and see what are some of the key issues that may need altering and tweaking and enhancing. So they're some of the parts that I'd like to look at. The other part that I would like to look at is ministerial operations and ensuring that any minister, whoever that be in the future, cannot drill down and make interventions in terms of specific licences, specific people, specific enforcement manners. So I want to just make sure that there's that level, that there's policy and direction, but there's not individuals being either, we'll say, targeted or changed in any way. That needs to sit above and let the structure of that new entity do its work. Also, we heard, and it was quite a big issue, without a doubt, was enforcement officers, and the cut back in the time last year, there was a cut by 44% of fisheries enforcement officers. I want to make sure that, again, we talk about the importance of our environment, we talk about the importance of access by Victorians and international and interstate travellers to experience these things, but we want to ensure that there is adequate authorised officers and that they are doing compliance work, education work, that they are really doing that on-the-ground work to stamp out any illegal harvesting, and I'm thinking of, pippies or abalone or the like, for example, but to ensure that there are adequate there and coverage to protect biodiversity, but protect the honest people who are doing the right thing, but not those people who are acting outside the law. I also want to ensure that the board has real-world experience. And I think this is really, really important, and some of the feedback we heard in relation to that was that as it's written, and I asked in the committee stage of the bill, as it's written, that the board could technically, having as on the reference, it could actually be somebody who is a hiker, for example, and I'm a hiker, so it's no disrespect to hikers, but they could acquit the element of the board that has outdoor recreation, commercial industry or agriculture. They could acquit that, and the Liberals and Nationals believe that there needs to be assurances that there are greater real-world, greater practical, and ensuring that there are commercial and recreational sectors are included in that. These are some of the changes that we've been talking about, and indeed I want to acknowledge that we have been having conversations today with the Minister and to see a way forward in enhancing the bill. Ultimately, the role of the opposition, the role of members of parliament not in government is to, and this House specifically, is to strengthen a bill, tease out elements that stakeholders, real Victorians, feel that they aren't being addressed, and strengthen and ensure that there is far more rigour and that it's designed to do what it is designed to do. So in relation to, I said that the recreational fishers, there are almost 1,900,000 licences, and I've got my licence for 3 years and enjoyed very much going off the out from San Remo the other day and caught some flatties. It's a fantastic pastime. As I said, 400 licence holders. We could go into great depth about the Silver Review. We could go into great depth about the Kenlay Review. I think I'll park that there. There might be some questions because that is a significant body of work, and I've been travelling around visiting and speaking at a variety of forums on firearms used by farmers, used by pest controllers, used by clay target shooters, outdoor rec, used by deer hunters, used by wild dog hunters, as I said, pest control, but also a variety of hunters, and they have been feeling very nervous about the government. I will say that there is a smidgen more relief that the government, indeed probably the Premier, came to her senses and rejected the cap, and that has to stay, that rejection of the cap. There is no, and even in the report, there is no quantifiable evidence that, and it was stated that caps do any material action to stop criminals and stop tragedies like we saw in December. So with those few words, Acting President, as I've said, I'm foreshadowing some amendments. They will appear tomorrow if we debate it tomorrow, debate the bill tomorrow. The Liberals and Nationals are very passionate about seeing more outdoor recreational pursuits, about seeing more families get together, individuals to get out there, to throw a line in, to enjoy that part, more hunters creating safe hunting environments, and also that commercial fishing groups to be able to do the work they do to provide beautiful food, and aquaculture groups, industry, to provide beautiful food for our tables and enhance our lives, and also to see a vision to come through where land access continues and is not further shut down by a government that is dealing with ideology. I hope that ideology is gone, but also the Liberals and Nationals certainly commit to open access, good governance and outdoor recreation where people are out enjoying themselves. And with that, I will end my comments there, but ensure that we will have much more to say when the amendments come through tomorrow morning.